Welcome to Loving Me Before I Love You with Tammy Nicole, the podcast dedicated to you loving and putting yourself first. Others have come first in your life for years, and you know it's time for that to change. You're about to be empowered to set healthy boundaries, confidently have hard conversations, unapologetically put yourself first, and live the peaceful life you deserve. Remember, self-love is essential, and loving yourself sets the stage for every other love in your life. So get ready to embrace self-love like never before with your host, Coach Tammy Nicole.
Hey, welcome back. I am so excited to meet with you guys this week. It is Transformation Tuesday over here at Loving Me Before I Love You. And it's a new month, and I'm super excited about this month. I have been getting emails asking if I was going to do anything on dads, and of course I am. It's June. It's the month of Father's Day. So we are going to start this month off with doing this episode here on how do I have a healthy relationship when I have daddy issues. And I'm doing this episode by myself. I have no friends today, guys, but it's okay. We're going to rock it and roll it. And it's going to help me because guess what? I actually got questions. People were asking about the daddy side of everything, and I have questions. And so we're kind of going to go through these questions, and I'm going to answer them from my personal and professional perspective. That's right. So we're going to, I think it's about 20 questions. So bear with me. I'm going to go through them. There's no particular order. But the one question that I do want to, or one thing I want to start off with is, what are daddy issues as a whole, right? So culturally, we've heard daddy issues to be very derogatory and very like, oh, she didn't have no daddy, she got daddy issues. Or she just doesn't know what it's like to have a dad in her life, and she's looking for a dad through men. She has daddy issues. Those are just like general culturally, that's like what you hear about it. When you hear a woman has daddy issues, her and her daddy didn't get along, or he wasn't there. That's the gist of it. And so I would say most of that is particularly right. But for me, I would refer to it as unresolved emotional issues that resulted from the relationship she had with her dad. So, and it manifests in their attachment patterns, trust issues, women that seek validation from men, those kind of things that show up as daddy's issues. Okay. That's really the best way to really describe it as a whole. So you may recognize that you have these issues in your own personal life. You may say, no, I don't have those. But I also think that daddy issues can derive from a dad being present, legitimately present, but what I call a super dad. And that means that when women, and it shows up in relationships as women get older in adulthood, I'll say it from this perspective. Your dad does everything for you. You can call on him for any and everything. You check in with your dad for all of your major decisions. You solely rely on him before you can make or do anything. Those types of daddy issues show up as well because you transfer those responsibilities to your significant other, or you overlook your significant other. And what I mean by that is you can have a whole man who does any and everything for you, but you will tend to still call on your daddy. You get a flat tire, instead of calling your husband or your boyfriend, you call in daddy. You have something in your house that needs to be put up that's real tall or difficult. Instead of calling your husband or your boyfriend, you call on your daddy. And those are daddy issues too, because those issues allow your significant other, boyfriend or husband, to feel insignificant and invaluable. And so, though on the outside, the relationship with the father seems to be super positive, it can lead to a very negative adult romantic relationship experience. And no, daddies, I'm not saying don't do for your kids, don't take care of them. I'm not saying that at all. However, I am saying when your daughter is becoming an adult, you have to teach her how to rely on herself and her other significant other. When she's calling you and saying, can you do X, Y, and Z? And she has a whole husband, she has a whole boyfriend or significant other, the answer is no. Get them to do it. The significant other, boyfriend or husband, should be the one calling dad to come fix something that they can't fix, to come do something that they can't do. It should not be the child, because she's supposed to be solely relying on her spouse. So I know that may be hard to hear for some people, but it's the truth. And that's, another form of daddy issues. So let's jump into these questions, because I'm really eager to see. I read a few of them, but I didn't go real deep. So we're going to get my real raw reaction to them, okay? So, how do I identify in my relationship struggles that are related to my issues with my dad? Okay. This may be a hard one if you're not in therapy, but I would say in general, go to therapy for it. But if you want to do this on your own, you need to reflect on your relationship patterns and behaviors. If you notice that you're having a recurring theme, recurring argument, recurring feeling on a particular argument, if you're having fear of rejection, if you're seeking approval, if you have a lot of distrust and there has not been an activity in the relationship that has led to that distrust, in other words, you haven't caught him cheating, you haven't caught him in 20,000 lies, you're just not trusting him because you don't trust yourself, or you just don't trust men in general because your daddy didn't show you how to trust him. Those are signs that may be linked to unresolved feelings about your dad. Again, I think you should journal or go to therapy in order to really sift through those signs or symptoms, or however you want to look at it, Let's see. The next one is, how can I communicate with my partner about my daddy issues without scaring them away? This is a really, really good question. So you have to be willing to be open, vulnerable, and be able to communicate or have a conversation about it. Now, before having this conversation, this is where I caution, right? You have to be able to say that you feel safe with your partner before deciding to have this level of conversation. Because this level of conversation can leave the doors open for manipulation and using it against you, right? And that typically happens when the person you're telling this information to is not a safe space. But a lot of times we don't know it, right? Until we actually participate in the conversation. But sometimes we do know, and we just don't want to acknowledge it. So I would say if you feel 100% safe and supported, that you would need to approach the conversation with vulnerability and honesty. And you would need to explain that you're working on these issues and you need their support. Do not use any statements that lead them to believe that you're blaming them for your issues. So in this conversation, always use I statements. I'm struggling with this because I X, Y, and Z. Even if it's something you're trying to tell them that they're doing. If you struggle with trust in a relationship because your dad would tell you as a kid, I'm coming to pick you up, and then never show up. So you're really struggling with trust and abandonment and all of that. If that shows up in your relationship, you want to be able to tell your significant other, I struggle with this level of abandonment because I was left all the time by my dad. So what would help me overcome this area of my life within our relationship is if you are able to do X, Y, and Z for me. And you just tell them what you need. Let's see what else. What's the next question? I think these questions are really good, to be honest. Are there specific, I can't talk today. Are there specific boundaries I should set with my partner to protect our relationship from unresolved issues? Absolutely. I am the boundary queen when it comes to self-love. So yes, you have to establish clear communication boundaries, such as discussing sensitive topics. Let's just say you cannot talk about, I can't talk about anything related to domestic violence. If that's a sensitive topic for you, then you need to share that so that they are aware. You need to ensure that you guys are having a mutual respect and space for personal growth. So when you're doing these boundaries, you need to set them for yourself and then you set them for them. Okay? Boundaries basically help maintain balance, and it prevents you from having overdependence. Okay? That was a really good question. The next question says, is it possible for someone with daddy issues to have a completely healthy and stable relationship? And the answer to that is absolutely. What allows anybody to have anything is to be simply self-aware of what you have going on, right? If you can have self-awareness, if you can be committed to your own personal growth, if you can use effective communication, you can build and maintain a healthy relationship. Healing is a journey, which means that you're forever healing. Sometimes people say, oh, I'm healed. And then you're healed until you're not, right? You're healed until somebody hits a trigger button that you didn't know you had and you react. And so that's why I say healing is a journey. And it's not it's like the destination is to be healed, but can you ever be fully healed? Sometimes no. Sometimes you're always healing because, again, you don't know what those triggers are all the time until they're pushed. So that's why I strongly recommend getting into therapy, having a safe space where you can always explore the different triggers that arrive and know how to develop healthy coping skills around them. Let's see. Again, I just mentioned coping skills, right? So this other question says, what are some effective coping mechanisms or self-care practices that can help you manage your triggers? Now, this is not free therapy, okay? However, I know some of us cannot afford to go, or some of us are afraid to go. So I'm going to tell you that my few techniques that I always recommend in general for healthy living, during your self-care journey, self-love journey, is simply to stay mindful, journal, do a lot of grounding exercises to manage your triggers. And what does that look like? So mindfulness is basically being intentional about the here and now, staying in the present. So when you are going through something and you are triggered and you have all these emotions coming, you have to ask yourself, particular questions like, is what I'm thinking realistic? Does it make sense? It shocks yourself into your new reality, right? Like if I am sitting over here having, oh man, I know he's cheating. He didn't answer his phone. I done called him twice. I done text him. He ain't texting back. Ooh, let me see if I can find his location. I know he out there talking to somebody, and you're triggered because he simply didn't answer the phone. Staying mindful is to ask yourself, is this my actual reality? Like, have you seen other signs of him possibly cheating? Asking yourself, could he have left his phone in the car and gone into the store? What other possibilities are there around him not answering the phone or responding to your text outside of him cheating? Sometimes we create a narrative in our mind that does not exist, and we foster that narrative and create arguments and other things all in our own, I don't want to say crazy world in our mind, but it is. It's a crazy world in our mind. And we just simply don't know how to get out of our own way. So staying mindful, journal how you feel. A lot of times we don't know what our triggers are because we are so autopilot. Everything that we do is just like on the subconscious. But if you ever take time and to journal how you felt in the moment that you had a trigger to happen, the moment before, the moment after, and the moment during, you may learn different things about your own patterns during the process. So practice self-compassion. Give yourself some grace. Of course, set your healthy boundaries and engage in activities that promote self-love and relaxation can also be beneficial.
Hey, hope you're feeling the love in today's episode. We'll pick back up where we left off in a moment. First, we're excited to share that Tammy has a collection of self-love t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, and journals for you to express how much you love yourself to the world. From comfy hoodies to motivational mugs, there's something for everyone. While you're listening to today's show, feel free to browse the full collection at IamTammyNicole.com. Thank you, and without further ado, let's get back into today's show.
So, let's see the next question. Oh, I love this one. How do I rebuild trust in relationships if my daddy issues have caused the trust issues? So, I first want to start by saying trust must start with you, right? So you must start building trust within yourself. You have to be able to trust your own judgment, your own instincts. You need to be able to communicate openly with your partner and take gradual steps towards opening up. A lot of times we don't trust people because we don't trust ourselves. And some of us may trust differently. And this is what I mean by this. I'm a person that I trust you off the rip. You break your trust with me, there's a problem. Other people say you have to earn the trust, which means I don't trust you until I've been around you long enough to say, okay, you've become trustworthy. Doesn't matter which side of the coin you sit on. You just have to be willing to say the trust resides regarding this individual based upon this individual. It cannot be based upon circumstances that have occurred previously. Like everybody has gone through trauma. Everybody has gone through hurt and pain and disappointment. And if I treated you based upon my disappointment, there would not be a healthy relationship around. Period. because we are all, I mean, we're creatures of habit as a whole, but behaviors are not exclusive to people. Like how I behave is just not exclusive to me. Other people can do the same behaviors because behavior is a behavior. Like, so we cannot treat people based upon other people's behaviors or based upon a behavior itself. We have to treat them based upon them, what they do in the moment regarding you, towards you, you know, directed around you. So the trust has to be built based upon that individual and not based upon your dad. That's first of all, because that person is not your father. I hope that resonated, because some of us really have a bad issue with putting other people's issues on other folks. Let's see. Ooh, what should I do if my partner has their own unresolved daddy issues? Honestly, it's nothing you can do besides encourage them to seek help, seek therapy, and do their own work. The only other thing that it's nothing you can do about their issues, is what I'm really saying. The other thing you can do is have empathy. You understand what it's like to have your own issues, but you have to have empathy and grace for them. You have to have an understanding. Understanding is key. When you can understand a thing, you may not like it, but understanding it is, it's like the golden key. Like, as long as I can understand you, I can adjust to what I need to do regarding you. And just be supportive. But remember, you're not responsible for their healing. Now, how do I handle feelings of abandonment or fear of rejection that stem from my relationship with my dad? Acknowledge and validate your feelings. Practice self-soothing techniques. And that looks like deep breathing, positive affirmations, things of that nature. And guess what? Talk about it. A lot of times we are so afraid to talk about our feelings. It can be because you fear that people won't support you, or that you fear that you're going to be judged. But if you're with a partner that you don't feel safe in that space, I would really be questioning, should I be with this partner? What are some positive affirmations or mindsets that can help me focus on building a healthy relationships? I would just say simple things. Like, you can really get robust with it and, go into deep affirmations and making them real specific for you. But simple things like, I am worthy of love is enough. That I am enough. That I trust myself and I trust my partner. Those are affirmations that you can say in general that will start to motivate your actions towards, like, doing things from a healthy, nice, and safe space. It would help reinforce your positive mindset. How important is it to forgive my father, and how do I go about that? Well, forgiveness is super important, because forgiveness is not about him, it's about you. A lot of times we stay in bondage and stay shackled to unhealthy emotional experiences because we refuse to forgive. And we think that that lack of forgiveness keeps that person held in captivity or held to the letter. And it really doesn't. It keeps you in bondage. Forgiveness is not for that person, it's for you. So it is the essential part of your healing. Sometimes you realize after forgiving them that you have to forgive yourself. And you're forgiving yourself for not forgiving them for all that time, because you held yourself up. They have gone on with their lives. They're doing what the heck they want to do. And you're still in bondage, sitting over here like, angry and mad and disappointed. And it's not that those things didn't happen. It's not that that feeling is not real, but you have to forgive yourself for allowing it to hold you that. Like it held you tight. And forgiving your dad releases yourself to do other things, but it also releases the mindset that they're responsible for your healing, because they're not. It would be lovely if your dad could provide you with closure of saying, I'm sorry, I messed up, I should have did this, I should have did that. But sometimes our parents don't know what the heck they doing anyway when they were raising us. And they only have the space and capacity to give and do based upon what they know themselves. We don't think about the fact that maybe your dad didn't have a father himself to teach him how to be a father. We don't think about what was going on in their lives and why they didn't show up the way that they needed to. And most of the time, men run from things that they don't know how to handle. That's just being honest. And sometimes we have to recognize that, and we have to say, you know what? I'm going to forgive you for me. And if he never says sorry, it's okay. Because the person that's affected is you. And if you want full growth, if you want to move forward, if you want to do things on your terms, you have to let it go. The next question, and probably the last question that I'm going to answer, is a couple of more on here, but it asks, can I provide any type of personal story or example of someone navigating a relationship despite having daddy issues? I will say this. I myself have had daddy issues. And the best healthy relationship that you can have in reference to navigating daddy issues is one with yourself. And going, and I would say growing through life, you have to be willing to address the hard parts. You have to be willing to address your issues, right? See yourself in the mirror, be able to acknowledge that you are not perfect. And because you're not perfect, that means your dad's not perfect either. And just simply being able to accept yourself in totality. And that includes your daddy issues. For me, man, let's see. I I I struggle with trying to provide you with full-fledged examples of this, because when I acknowledged that I had daddy issues, I decided that I wasn't going to allow those things to kind of like hold me back, and that I would release all of it. A lot of times those issues are because we're holding in the secret and we're acting like the things that happened or didn't happen that we expected to happen don't exist. And it kind of like be pushing in and holding. And it's like, no, I had to be free. I had to be able to be willing to talk about it. My dad wasn't a horrible guy at all. My issues came because he never showed up when I expected him to. He may have felt like he showed up when he needed to, but there's a difference when there's an unspoken expectation and then there's nobody that respond to it. And so some of it I can say, oh, I kind of put that on myself, because I always tell people now, you should never expect anything from anybody because it only leads to disappointment. But for myself in that moment, I felt like, but you're my dad and you're supposed to know, and you should always show up for everything. You're supposed to show up for graduations. You're supposed to show up for, pivotal moments in your life. And he didn't come to a lot of them. He didn't. I became an adult. He showed up to some things. I used to feel like he was doing it because my mom had passed. and that he wasn't doing it for me. But we were always two peas in a pod. And so I had come to terms that it really wasn't about him anymore, and that my life needed to be about me. So I did have to forgive him, and I had forgave him. And forgiveness does not mean that I need to have a high level relationship with him of being like a daddy's girl or what have you. Sometimes we confuse forgiveness with reconciliation and moving back into a loving relationship and everything is hee ha ha. And that's not always true. Sometimes forgiveness just simply means exactly that. I forgive you for the hurt that I feel in my heart, but I do not have to let you back in my life with the potential of you hurting me again. I can recognize who you are and see who you are and move accordingly. And that's with anybody. And so I had forgiven him. I still interacted with him. I continue to try to build a relationship, but sometimes other circumstances are in the way and it doesn't allow that individual to do that. It doesn't allow them to be who you desire them to be. So you have to learn to accept them for who they are. So that was also a part of my forgiveness process too. I had to forgive myself for desiring him to be something he was incapable of doing. And that may run over some of your heads, but sometimes you just have to say, you know what? That picture that I have drawn up in my head, those experiences that I have drawn up in my mind that I should experience with my father may not ever come to pass. And I need to be okay with that. Having daddy issues is very normal. However, the real issue is, do you know who you are? When you figure out who you are and whose you are, who your real father is in Jesus, it is a liberating experience. And it would allow you to free yourself from the expectations of your dad. This has been a very, very, very great experience with you guys answering these questions. I really enjoyed it. June is Father's Month, so we're going to be talking about some other things, and we're going to celebrate dads too, because Father's Day is coming, and so don't think that we're going to be bashing dads, because I don't believe in that. I believe in telling the truth. Again, love yourself so much that the love from others is a bonus. See you next time. It's Transformation Tuesday.
That's a wrap on another episode of Loving Me Before I Love You. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a second to show your support by subscribing and leaving a positive rating and review on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. Stay connected with Tammy. Make sure you're following her on Instagram and TikTok at Coach Tammy Nicole. If you like to work with Tammy or have any questions you'd like her to answer, please head over to www.IamTammyNicole.com. Until next time, always remember to love yourself so much that the love from others is a bonus.